All right, welcome back. We are here today with Matthew Martin. This is episode 4 of the Strictly Business Sprinkler Repair Pros podcast. Matt, thanks for coming out today. Appreciate having you.
Pleasure to be here.
So,
Mike, pleasure.
I've known Matt for a long time. Grew up in the same neighborhood as me and Mike. Got a cool story to tell, a little bit about his business, his charity, his 501c3, and a little bit about his volunteer efforts running a local football program. And so we've got a lot coming up here. Mike, go ahead and start off, man. What's your first question for Matt?
Hey, Matt. Again, thanks for coming out, man. We're really excited to have you here today. We got some questions here. Let's start it off easy and kind of break the ice. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
I guess going back to what Jason mentioned, we've known each other for a long time. My in-laws and his parents, I think, been really close friends. I met my wife in high school in Pecan Grove at Fort Bend Austin, graduate of Fort Bend Austin High School. My family and I moved out to Pecan Grove in '95 from A-Leaf, and so that, since then, besides being away at college, pretty much that area has been my home. I met my wife, Katie Martin, formerly Katie Grzybowski, my senior year in high school, and we dated off and on throughout my college and her college and early careers and things like that. And then we finally decided we couldn't get rid of each other and got married in 2009. And luckily for me that, she kept letting me come back around, so I think she tried to get rid of me a few times, but
cool.
So did that, and then when we moved, Katie and I moved to Pecan Grove, as she was a registered nurse and I was in the pipe business, so I know this is a business interview, so to speak, and I got into the oil and gas business out of college. I went to, kind of backing up real quick, went to Texas Tech, spent fun 4.5 years in Lubbock, did my bachelor's up there, and then stayed an extra year and did my MBA. And so came out, just like everyone else, started at the bottom. I was on a gas scheduling desk, kind of worked through my network with neighbors and stuff like that, and just had no idea what that was. Did that for a couple years, and then moved to a family-owned business which sold downhole pipe, tubulars, in the oil and gas industry. So I always wanted to be in sales, kind of more business development, out and about, developing relationships and doing that sort of thing. So first company in the pipe business I worked for was a company called Petro Amigo Supply.
Okay.
Again, started at the bottom, learned the ins and outs of the pipe business, and then progressively moved up and was there for almost 10 years. Made a jump, just kind of a career move. Went to another company called Eagle Pipe, was there through COVID, and as many businesses were affected from COVID.
Yeah.
Eagle was one of them. Eagle's still around, but the company changed drastically. As they said it was a kind of a hockey stick curve company. Started in 2013, young, ambitious guy started the company and started adding guys like myself to help them continue to grow the business. And we were on that trajectory when COVID hit, and the company got affected pretty bad by one big customer that they had, which really, when you lose a big customer, kind of over leveraged, so to speak, and that
All the eggs were in one basket, so to speak, huh?
They were, enough in our industry, and I can get more into that in a minute when we talk about my company, but it's one big customer, can take you down.
Absolutely.
If you have 50 other customers, but that one big one's kind of your anchor customer.
Yeah.
And
Well, they say 30% of your customers are responsible for 70% of your business a lot of the time, and so that can be problematic, especially in a business like this where the contracts are so big compared to a small, transactional business. So
so the pipe business the nature of the pipe business is it's a very expensive, high cost business, and it's a low margin business. So it takes a lot of capital to even be involved in it, and then if your margins are low, single digits, but you're working off of turning that inventory, right? So you're working off deals that continue to turn, and when there's slowdowns in the market or a complete stop like we saw with COVID,
Absolutely.
which was unprecedented.
Absolutely.
And you've got, you know, over $100 million allocated to one customer.
Whew. Wow.
That's a
And
lot.
really strategic things. Eagle did a really good job of doing kind of different models and things with some of customers, just trying to you know, get outside of the traditional box and do some different things. So there was relationships across that whole supply chain that were severely affected, from manufacturing to distribution, which is what Eagle was, to logistics, all because of one customer, you know, kind of took the opportunity with COVID to reevaluate everything, kind of called force majeure, which means this is an unprecedented event. We have the right at this time to cancel all open contracts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so,
Wow.
you know, it's very unfortunate because it was a fun company. I think personally, I learned a lot from those guys in a short period of time. They're our age, and they started, like I said, Eagle in 2013, and built it into, you know, $400 or $500 million revenue company
That's
in a
impressive,
short period of
for
time. And that was, you know, unfortunate, but we all survived. We've gotten through it. The owners are still doing their thing, and it gave me, honestly, the opportunity to do some other things with them outside of oil and gas, but then transition into starting my own business, which ultimately, going from Petro Amigos, learning a lot from them and still do business and best friends with some of those guys over there, to Eagle Pipe, a little more risky company and doing, you know, things a little differently, and then learning from both of them, and then, you know, being fortunate enough to you know, start my own business, and just about to hit the 2-year anniversary mark there.
Well, I think it's probably safe to say, and again, I don't know the full story behind it, but maybe had you not made the jump from Petro Amigos to Eagle Pipe, you may not own your own company right now. So it's probably, in the end, it led you right to where you needed to be.
Yeah.
Which is good. And you got a little bit of experience outside of that. You got to see what happens in a downturn. And you know, they always say with margins, right? If you're at 10% margins or less, you're kind of always right there. You know, like 15 to 20%, you count your chickens because it's incredible. But 10% or less can be very difficult. So, like you said, when you're operating on, you know, high cost of goods, high logistics, low margins, something like COVID, any kind of downturn, especially in oil and gas, can be very tough.
Yeah, so I mean, the nature of the oil and gas business, you know, for those of you that don't know, a lot of people see gasoline prices and they just kind of base everything off that. I mean, there's a lot surrounding all of that, and it's a very cyclical industry in itself. No matter what part of the industry you're in, it's always moving up and down, right?
Yeah.
So when gasoline prices are low, no one seems to care. When they start to go up, you know, the oil industry is a bad industry and everyone's mad at it. But there's a lot of factors behind all of that. And now, if you're a service company within that, you know, typically the struggle's even more difficult than, saying, being a company that's drilling and producing oil.
Absolutely.
And things like that. And
Absolutely.
so the service companies are, what a pipe distribution company is. We buy pipe from a manufacturer, and then we ship it to our customers, which typically are oil and gas customers that are then putting that material downhole to produce oil and natural gas.
Gotcha.
And so the nature of the business is, like you said, it's high cost, low margin, and it's very risky. It's hard to get into.
Like you said, because the upfront cost just to
Right.
order pipe, or just to get a contract with someone like a Shell or a Chevron, or something. I mean, it's just,
He didn't say $100. He said $100 million, just to make sure
Yeah,
people
so
know that.
I mean, to kind of give everyone a perspective of how I transitioned into owning my own pipe distribution company.
what's the name of the company first off?
So 4011 Pipe. People always ask, why 4011? Where'd that come from? The simple answer is, it's a numerical portion of my home address.
Oh.
I started, or I DBA'd, or I LLC'd the company in the state of Texas prior to starting the pipe company, before I ever knew I was going to start a pipe company. And it was kind of for a small, little, tiny real estate venture that I did. And so 4011, real estate, numbers kind of flows.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've got 4 kids, all their names start with the letter E.
Okay.
And so we start kind of looking at, okay, that's cool for a little real estate deal. I was literally sitting at my dining room table talking to Katie about changing the name, and she goes, "Why would you change the name? Just put pipe at the end of it."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so that's what we did. We've got what I think is a cool little logo with the initials FE, and then it's got what looks like to most people a crown on top of it, but that's pipe going down hole.
Oh, okay.
So there's some symbolism there with all that kind of deeply rooted, and kind of looked up some other stuff and just made it stick, and I think we'll as we're kind of looking at different business opportunities at all times. Inside of oil and gas, outside of oil and gas, it's kind of one of those things that can
Leveraging the relationships, basically.
So-
yeah, and 4011 can be kind of the title piece to everything that I do going forward.
Awesome.
From a branding perspective.
So I want to just ask Matt. So you talk about relationships and in business, and especially in the oil and gas industry, right? Everybody thinks of the big dogs, right? And Exxons and Mobil's and all the big guys, and not coming from working with those companies and then starting your own company, right? And I see your title here is president. On a day-to-day basis, what's your role? Are you reaching out to those big guys? Are they a little too big for a company like 4011 Pipe? Who are you working with, and who are those calls, and what kind of calls are you making every day to engage business?
So to not overcomplicate the conversation, just because there's a lot of intricacies involved in this, but I'll get to that in a sec, but let me just kind of explain how I started this deal, because I never thought I'd be able to start my own pipe company because of the upfront cost.
Right.
In 2022, pipe, for an analogy that's simple, was like the toilet paper run that happened during COVID. Because everything shut down in 2020, you're talking about huge pipe manufacturing, steel companies that are making pipe, right? And when you're talking pipe to service the oil and gas industry, you're talking millions of feet of 45-foot long joints that go down the hole to produce our oil and natural gas, right? And so when that shut down, because it did, a lot of things backed up, a lot of manufacturing, so supply chains were disrupted severely. In 2021, when the Ukraine-Russia conflict kind of kicked off, oil prices shot up. The market, the oil drilling had already started coming back, progressively, but that kick-started it to a faster progression back. And so what you need is material to...
Absolutely.
Yeah, supply.
There's a void that needs to be filled.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And so there's a lag in manufacturing time to completion time,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And so you can't just snap your fingers and have a bunch of pipe out there, right?
Right.
And so the rest of 2021 and really into 2022, there's a huge shortage of pipe. And as I was transitioning out of Eagle, I started getting calls from customers, like companies that I dealt with, oil and gas companies, some distributors. We do a lot of distribution to distribution trading with each other, buying and selling from each other, even though we compete. If so-and-so has this and they don't, we're happy to cross, sell. And I really wasn't doing a whole lot with pipe at the time. Like I mentioned earlier, I was doing some stuff with the Eagle guys, but it was outside of oil and gas. And I started getting these calls about pipe, and I was like, man, what's going on, And so I started talking to some of my contacts. I think my first independent sale, it was spring break time. I was with my kids. It was a Saturday. I answered the phone. The guy needed something I knew I could get through my channels.
Right.
Just knowing I know this item, I know who's got it, I know who will sell it to me. And I basically bailed this guy out. I didn't know the guy. I knew of the company. I said, hey man, how'd you get my number? He said, pipe's so short right now. People are just throwing like anyone you've ever bought pipe from and your name was on there. He's like, to be honest, you're the 6th guy I called. You're the only one that's answered the phone. It's Saturday morning at 10 a.m., right?
That's Jason's thing. He loves answering
so
the phone on Saturday.
I said, well, I can tell you one thing. I'm not selling a lot of pipe, but I know I can get you what you need right now because I've sold a lot of that specific, size and grade and all this stuff. But I do answer my phone whenever it rings, and so you called the right guy as far as someone that answers the phone and takes care of business. So that kind of kick-started, the wheels turning in my head. Like, There's a couple other deals that started to pop up, and then one thing led to another, and I think that happened in March. Like I said, spring break time in May, I was taking that, 4011 management real estate name and LLC and putting DBA in it as pipe and starting to move forward and putting pipe deals together. The one thing that market afforded me and how I was able to start my own company was because pipe was so short, no one was selling pipe at that time without getting paid in advance. And so traditionally, the way our industry works is, once you have credit built up and all that, a new guy like me coming in, if I'd started in a normal time, I'd have to pay cash in advance because I don't have credit built up with, and, I have a reputation and I have, the trust of some guys, and maybe I could work some deals out, but getting that same reciprocation from the customer is non-existent. I'm not going to go to any real oil company, even if they're new, and say, hey, pay me cash, because they can just go to somebody else, a competitor,
100%,
a big company that's got it on the shelf and will take that risk, right? And so everybody was paying cash in advance. It didn't matter. And so I was able to do these deals with customers initially, and then the flow of money was backwards. It was coming from the customer to me. I was running to the bank, say, honestly, the first deal I did, say it was a $500,000 sale. I was only keeping a small piece of that, maybe, $10,000-$20,000 of that as the gross profit.
Yeah.
And so I'd get it come in. I got it to come in. First community credit union bank that I used, there's one in HEB in Aliana. They're like, "What are you doing? Like, what's your business?" They think I'm like a drug dealer, like for real. And I have,
500,000.
I was set up with them, and so I'm explaining this. But when that first wire came in,
because it's outside of
their
norm.
mind was blown. I'm like, what? And
they
so I
put a hold on.
I was like, look, I've got to now take 95, 96, 97% of that out and go pay my manufacturer.
Yeah.
And so the first few deals I was doing, I was getting cashier's checks and then taking them to my manufacturer supplier and giving them a cashier's check.
Gotcha.
And so it was wild times. And so I knew that wouldn't last forever. I was hoping it would last longer than it did. But it lasted, I would say, kind of through early Q4 of 2022. And so really that enabled me, though, that environment, that market of cash and advance payments, to even be able to start this business.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then you deliver on a couple of deals, and now you've created some relationships on both sides. The supplier that you're paying, he's like, "Hey, Matt's good for it." And the guys that are buying it from you are like, "Hey, Matt delivered for us."
Right.
So now in the future, they, like you said, it's a small world. Everybody kind of talks a little bit.
So, I mean,
it's out there.
It's kind of right place, right time, right transition in the company, from Eagle to really not knowing what I was going to do. I'm about to start looking for a new job. What am I going to do really with my future? So all that kind of came together pretty quick. And, someone's probably watching this thinking, well, why didn't every pipe sales guy go start their own company and do this? And I think at that time it was 12, 13 years in the pipe business, a lot of relationships. I've always treated my manufacturing partners as good or better than my customers.
Well, I think,
right?
and just from my perspective too, it's all about your character, right? Just because you have the connections, just because you have the ability to deliver, even though you were number 6 on that guy's list, if you weren't a guy of high character that people could count on and trust, they're not even going to call you. No. It's like, Matt Martin, no. So obviously somebody knew you enough to say, "Hey, Matt's a good guy. We've worked with him before. Give him a call." So although you might at the time, right, when you're doing these deals working for the other companies, you're not thinking about, the snowball effect that your actions on a day-to-day basis have down the road, right? And so it's all about character. Nobody, even in a pinch,
correct.
If they're like, "I don't trust this guy, he's, why am I doing
skip
business
next
with
guy."
him?" And you're willing to take the risk and put it on your own shoulders too. And most people aren't willing to do that. It's not hard to set up a DBA. However, it's hard to actually make it happen. Actions are
starting your own business is a scary thing, right?
Oh, for
and
sure.
Working for the companies that I've mentioned and making, pretty good money, and you've got health insurance, and you've got,
security,
a check coming in every 2 weeks or once a month. That's nice. And then you get a bonus at the end of the year if you do well or whatever, however it works. It's hard to leave that, even though, leaving that could possibly mean a lot better situation, a
100%.
lot more stress, a lot more on your shoulders, right? You can't just walk away from from situations, it's all on you as the owner.
For sure.
But it's a scary thing to think about. And so when I was in that transition period, I didn't have those things, right? Like my salary was gone, my insurance, health insurance for the family of 6 was gone, and I saw an opportunity that I might not have taken if I still had all that.
100%,
right?
yeah.
And so I think it was a blessing, you know, the way everything transitioned, and then the timing of everything, that it led me to where I am today, and where that goes, we can get into more of that, but it's, you know, we're here today. It's been successful. We're in a down period right now. The pipe market is bad. So as a really, I wouldn't say good. It was a good time from a margin standpoint and a financial standpoint, but it wasn't a good time for our customers. A lot of them couldn't get pipe. A lot of them got burned on pipe. Prices for pipe, as we're seeing in other things these days, inflated immediately.
Right.
And so we saw a run on pipe prices that we'd never seen. You know, I think if I think back to, say, when I started the pipe business in 2010, 2011, some of the older, wiser guys during kind of slower times, oh man, we'll never see another year like that. Well, we saw that in 2022 and then some. And so now we're saying today, as things have kind of come back down, we're kind of in a lull, prices have deflated. So unlike stuff at the grocery store, our stuff will move up,
Yeah.
you know, truly
Right.
with economic base,
Right.
and then move back down.
Gotcha.
And so we're saying now we'll never see another 2022. You know, one thing I've learned in business in general is never say never.
Right.
And always, you know, kind of keep as clear of a vision and, you know, peripheral vision, because as soon as you say never, something happens.
Yeah.
And this world's crazy. And
Well, it's a testament to just being prepared. You know, always be prepared. It's like the Scout motto, right? It's like whenever things are going good, you know, obviously you want to prepare yourself for the downturn. And the problem is with
Correct.
running any small business. Now, in our industry, you know, me and Mike talk about, there's not any like huge players in the irrigation industry, national, you know, worldwide. But in oil and gas, when things do plummet, the juggernauts can come in and just wipe everybody else off the table, right?
Yeah,
Because they're the ones that have the pipe. They're the ones that have
The resources.
and they can just say, hey, well, you know,
And
now's a good time to buy these guys out. Now's a good time to, you know, lower the price and just wipe out our competition. So it
Yeah.
makes it very difficult for small businesses. And, you know, I know the first company you worked for was, you know, been very successful over the years, so they've been able to, you know, hang around. And
yeah,
you know,
but and they, you know, I think as a sales guy, you're very ambitious and you know, kind of a big picture, like let's go do things, and they were always very good at being conservative, and as a sales guy, maybe thinking sometimes they're too conservative.
Yeah.
And so really, you know, going from Petro Amigos to Eagle Pipe, I got to see 2 different worlds, right?
Absolutely.
And Petro Amigos, you know, has been around for 40 years, and although as a sales guy, sometimes you're frustrated with some of the conservativeness, I guess, it's a testament to them and what they've done.
100%.
And I
well, and
think-
they've been through the, you know, the ups and downs,
Right.
the housing
Yeah.
market
and
crash.
so
right,
now
all that
owning my
stuff.
own business, I think about both. I've taken great things from both companies and both ownership teams, and trying to incorporate that into how I think about my business. And I'm still in the super infancy stages of this thing, and really at this point, you know, coming out of kind of that escalation period to now, in 2023, I did a lot of consulting and worked for some other guys that couldn't operate, but wanted to put some money behind something as far as pipe goes, and help those guys do a lot of things, working with some different manufacturers from that standpoint, and to now having the ability to do a little bit more traditional pipe business where I'm selling to end users, which are the oil and gas companies that drill and produce, and manage some of that in a more traditional sense where I'm giving those guys net 30-day terms. My manufacturers are giving me net 30-day terms, and we're, you know, constantly watching cash flow. I've got a partner, his name's Jeff Rayleigh, who he's a good complement to my skill set. I think, you know, I've mentioned sales quite a bit in business development. I'm that guy. I'm a little bit unorganized. Jeff is on top of things, super diligent, and keep track of everything, and so we tag team things really well.
Awesome.
I didn't know that Jeff was your partner. That's cool.
Yeah, so from a business ownership standpoint, technically we're not partners like that, and I heard y'all talk about that on your last podcast, and we've learned from some of the things that we've done, not with each other. I mean, we've done it with each other, but like looking at different partnerships, how complicated that can get,
very complicated,
how contractual it can get. And so luckily Jeff and I, we go way back. I mean, him and Katie went to kindergarten together, right? And so Jeff and I are more like brothers than friends. And
absolutely.
And we, there's a big trust there. We have some contractual stuff, but he's basically, I 1099 him. And so we have his operating agreement with 4011.
But he is a partner in the business.
No, he's 4011.
That's great.
100%.
He's
great.
CFO, COO, whatever he wants to call himself.
And just like you, I'm sure he's paid off success. He's not everything that comes from that too. It's like, when you get guys on board like that, and I feel the same way about Mike. Although, is he ever going to be a partner in the business? I can't say, but he approaches it every single day like he is, right? Because he has that experience. And so having somebody, even just, you can just sit there and bounce ideas off of, like he holds me accountable because I'm a lot like you, right? My mind's going in 500 different places.
Yeah.
And Mike's like, hey, we need to do this today. Like, for example, yesterday our phones went down. And it was not our phone issue. We have a VoIP service, a system that we use. And Mike was like, hey, we need to update our voice message right now, so it says text us, right? Not something I wouldn't have probably done because I'm like so stressed about the fact that our calls aren't coming in. He's like, hey, we need to take the truck and get the AC fixed on it. We need to do this, we need to do that. And so having someone else there with you, not just an employee who's gonna be like, yeah, whatever you need. Someone who's like, look, man, we need to do this. Holding me accountable, I hold him accountable. I'm sure you and Jeff have the same.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've known Jeff my whole life too. He's a great guy. I know his parents. I know his brother. Comes from a great family.
There's a lot of, almost every day we're doing that. We're talking about deals, accounting. Now because of how transactions have become more normalized, we've got, our payables or receivables, and it's, Jeff probably gets frustrated with me because he's diligently tracking all that, and I know where to go find it on our shared drive, and I call him, and spits it out in 2 seconds or whatever.
It's like, I know exactly how much we're owed.
But even just like, we're trying to maintain a current account, and we've got to submit a quote to our customer next week, and we know we have some competition, and so we're just bouncing different ideas off of each other on that. It's, I'm happy to share part of our accomplishments because one, he's super valuable and helps me out a ton, and I think we're gonna do better together than I would solo.
Right.
And it's a lonely world out there when you're solo.
Yeah.
And so it's refreshing just to have someone to pick up the phone and call about the business, and just even sometimes we just talk about nonsense or we repeat ourselves.
Hey,
but
you're talking our
it's
language.
better,
the same stuff
it's better than
every
just
day.
sitting in front of my computer being like, all right, who am I going to call now? Who am I going to try to stir this up? Right. But it's
and it actually knows what your you got probably mentors and other business people that actually knows about your business, right? Is locked in with you every single day. And he and I do that all the time. We have different perspectives. We were doing it, before this podcast, we were going over some things, and even on the way over here, it's about being able to see problems or foresee things before they become a problem, right? And putting out those fires. Like, we were talking about yesterday too. I'll just touch on what Jason was saying. We brought another employee on, and we need another truck, right? Well, we have another truck, but then what happens if another truck goes down? So we're already thinking those things because we don't want 2 trucks down. We don't want 1 truck down. If we ever have a truck down, we got to make sure we have something to move forward. And it's having that mind space with already having that figured out is going to take a lot less stress than having to do it when that situation.
When it happens, you already have a system in place. You just pick up the phone, and he would suggest using like Enterprise, right? They have like systems where you can rent trucks for commercial use, right? Instead of being like, we have a truck down, because if we have a truck down, not only do we lose revenue for the day, but that employee, one of our employees, just doesn't get paid.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a system for everything, and the fact that we're talking about it now, it almost guarantees some shit's gonna happen in the next couple days. You know what I mean? But having his perspective has been very valuable to me. Like you said, it is very, very lonely. As an owner, man, it feels that way.
It can be.
Because your employees, even if you're close to them, I have some employees that are family. but it's still like there's like a barrier there, whether you create it or not, where it's like you're not always gonna get, they're not gonna tell you everything,
Right.
one way or the other, whether it be good or bad. And so having somebody else to kind of bounce ideas off of too, and we've been very, very fortunate and very successful recently with our new model. But I can say that our growth, having Mike around, has really helped me. So I'm sure you and Jeff have that same.
Yeah, and Jeff and I, we worked together at Petro Amigos. I think he was there about a year before I came on, but our roles were always kind of synonymous, as far as I was the outside sales guy, and he did a lot of my inside sales stuff and operational stuff. And so
The important stuff. You're like the relationship guy. He's the guy in the trenches doing all the
I'm
paperwork.
kicking stuff back to him, and hey, can you handle this, and do all these things. And we did a lot of business together. As far as when I mentioned $400-500 million earlier.
Wow.
With Eagle Pipe, Petro Amigos, when we both exited and I went to Eagle, or he exited first and went somewhere else, and I went to Eagle. But Jeff and I were doing a lot of deep water stuff, and if you want to talk big money, deep water pipe, if you think about the unfortunate event that happened in 2010, which is right when I started at Petro Amigos, which was interesting. But the Deepwater Horizon incident that happened out in the Gulf of Mexico, we are supplying, and Petro Amigos still is to this day, pipe to those rigs that are in 3,000 to 5,000 feet of water before you ever hit the surface of the earth. And then from there you're going 20,000 feet, total depth. If it's, vertical, 10 to 15 to 20,000 feet down, and then kicking out another, it's a wild.
Big numbers.
It's wild to think about. That stuff's super expensive, and Jeff and I were kind of tag teaming a lot of that business from 2010 to 2019. So that's
cool.
good. Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, I know. Let's not switch gears, but we're going to switch gears a little bit, Matt. We've talked a lot about 4011, but you also run another business that
Correct.
we can touch on a little bit. And just what we really want to know is like, what are some differences with running that? This is a charity business. This is more of a donation base. You get a lot of sponsors, a lot of people come on board. I know Jason's I believe on the board with this business as well. But talk about some of the differences between running a for-profit business and then more of a charity-based business.
Yeah, nonprofit.
Yeah, nonprofit.
And I like how you said that, because they're all businesses, right?
100%.
And it's, the thankful ones, my family and I say my family, not just our immediate family, but our bigger family, kind of put together this nonprofit back in 2016 when we were going through our foster to adoption process. It was a kinship thing with our oldest daughter, Everly. And the backstory on that, just quickly, is we were, about a year into Everly living with us, and about 6 months into court situation with her bio parents, and we were kind of blown away by the cost of everything. I think we went to court for the first time in June of 2016, and by October of 2016, when we did our first event, we were probably, as a bigger family, because we were getting support from our family, we were probably, $20,000 in the hole, as far as attorney fees and court costs and all these different things that, in my mind, was mind-blowing, from the standpoint of we're trying to protect a child. At the time, Everly was 6 years old, and we were just trying to give her a safe place to live, in a family that could support her every single day, not just when the parents decided to wake up and be functional.
Right.
And so I was amazed at those costs and what the hurdles were to even put that barrier up so we could protect the child. And so in October of 2016, prior to forming the Thankful Ones 501c3, we came up with the idea of hosting a fundraising event. We had a ton of support from Pecan Grove. I mean, like I said, we've been there. I've been there since '95. Same with my mom, who's a realtor out there. Katie was born and raised out there, and so we have a huge network. And Pecan Grove is such an amazing neighborhood where people find out there's something going on and they want to support it and help.
Yeah.
And so we had people coming up to us at the grocery store, at family friend events or whatever, saying, hey, we heard what y'all are doing, how can we help y'all? Like, what can we do to help? And I didn't really have an answer for them, but I knew there was this, and at the same time, people would tell us, oh, we know so-and-so that's doing something similar.
Okay.
And I would always ask, are they going to court? Are they fostering the kid to adopt? What's the situation? And most of them would say no, and most of them, the feeling that I got was it was too complicated, like I was already experiencing.
Too much red tape.
And too expensive.
Yeah.
And so, because my family had helped us so much, it alleviated that financial burden. That's because the emotional side doesn't even really get talked about.
Right.
And we already had our first 2 born children. Then we threw Everly into the mix, and then Katie was pregnant all at the same time. And it was super emotional, especially for a mom as guys, I don't know, maybe some guys are different, but I don't think we're more black and white. We don't feel as much, as moms do,
100%.
especially females that have become moms and are going through that, and especially pregnant females, right?
Right.
So Katie's pregnant at the same time. In her mind, she felt like she was taking someone else's daughter away.
Right.
And so even though it was for the right reasons and for the best for the child, it was really hard on her. And so my bigger family alleviating us from that financial thing, saying don't ever open an invoice. When the lawyer sends them to you, give them to us.
Nice.
And so in October, my initial idea was to host an event with all these people that kept coming up to us and almost seemed like they wanted to offer us some sort of financial support. I'd say, never entertained it, but I said, let's do something better, bigger, and let's try to, get people together. We found out that year that November's National Adoption Month.
Okay.
And the turkey trot idea came from within, because a couple times I've been deer hunting or something, and Katie went and took the kids and pushed them in the one in Katy, Texas. And so we said, man, there's not really one here. Like, that'd be kind of cool to do it. Our family's a bigger family. That's like, if only our family shows up, there'll be 50 people out there.
Yeah.
And we'll get some bright colored shirts, and people will be like, what are y'all doing? And
Nice.
So that was the idea. We started that idea in October for the turkey trot. By, within 2 or 3 weeks, we had raised a few $1,000s. We had formed the Thankful Ones nonprofit with my cousin Lindsay, who kind of knew a little bit about Lindsay Ryland, now Lindsay Cross, but kind of knew about nonprofits. And so she kind of helped steer that direction. And my thought at the time was still, we're gonna raise some money and we're gonna repay my family back. So you start looking into the rules of a nonprofit, and like direct family can't get this. But of course, when I took that idea to them, they were like, no, do something bigger with this. Do not pay us back, right? And so we had that first turkey trot. There might have been 150 people out there. I think we raised close to $15,000
Nice.
Gross. 100% of those net proceeds. So I fronted all the money for all the event costs and everything, paid myself back, nothing more. And then we donated 100% of those proceeds to Child Advocates of Fort Benton. And so
Nice.
we wanted to immediately do something with those initial funds in 2016 and show the community, like, this is about the community.
Make an impact.
It's about protecting children. It's about what we're doing with Everly, and what we've heard all these other stories about all these kids kind of in similar situations. And we're gonna make an initial splash and, post this stuff and see what happens, right? And so we did that. It was successful for throwing it together in a month. I think Child Advocates was extremely happy to get, I think it was a little bit over, I don't know, I think it was $8,500, $9,000, out of nowhere, right? And so for them, it was cool. And we proceeded with better forming the Thankful Ones and doing, taking it from a nonprofit in the state of Texas to applying for 501c3.
Okay.
And then getting it going from there. So the first few years, man, it was raise some money, give it all away, back to zero, let's go raise more money. And the turkey trot's our staple event. I think more people know us for the Pecan Grove Turkey Trot than they know us for
The actual name.
And so I think that's, we'll be at year 9 this year, and we're doing some really good things in the community. As far as operating a nonprofit versus a for-profit business, the way we've built the Thankful Ones is through those early years, just having kind of our initial fundraising event, which is on Thanksgiving morning, and then taking that money and doing something good with it, right? To really, it's just kind of, I guess it's growing organically, right? We've never had enough funds or a big donor that's come in and said, hey, I want to give you $100,000. This is yours. 1 through 3, 4, right, 5. That could just give us some more room to do different things,
right?
Because it takes money to really get your name out there. And the hardest thing that I found out through all of this is, especially as social media has evolved over the years, is promoting things through social media, say Facebook and Instagram, in 2016, 17, 18 were a lot easier than doing it now.
It's so cluttered. So, the space is
and algorithms and these things, and
yeah.
it's unfortunate in my opinion, because we're trying to do something good, and every time I post something, I get an ad feed that shows up, and so they block everything. They want me to spend a bunch of money on ads with them. I've tried it. I didn't see any more success than I've had, and so there's really professional or strategic ways to do that stuff, and I'm not at that level yet, or really that interested.
Keep it going organically, man. I think that's the right way. I think you're doing it right, man. I commend you for it. I mean, I know a lot of people that have started them, but with I think the message behind it and what you're doing is great, and the community you're forming is even better.
So for the audience, I mean, what we've done and taken and done, originally was donating to larger nonprofits. So essentially brokering funds. We're a child adoption foster supporting 501c3, and so what our goal is to support families like ourselves that went through something with Everly, take the financial burden off the family, so they can focus on the child, and they can deal with the emotional things. And what you come to find out through all this, once we've started dealing directly with families, most of them, even if it's alleviating that financial burden, they can't even move forward without our assistance. Most of them are low, mid to lower income, and especially now with inflation and everything, adoption and foster expenses. I mean, just taking a kid into your house, your expenses go up
100%.
Immediately, right? Now start having to pay for court costs and attorney fees and all this red tape stuff that you don't even know exists.
Well, and the time too that it takes for somebody who is already probably has children of their own, bringing a new child into the house, and now they got to go to court. They got to meet with the lawyers. They're having to take off of work. The overall plus too. I mean, even if you're adopting somebody that's part of your own family, it's still incredibly difficult. This is something I've learned working with Matt. As a board member for the Thankful Ones, Matt does 99% of the work for sure. For sure. I mean, we have a great group of team members with the Thankful Ones, and but we've had these discussions before. The amount of time, even if the financial burden is alleviated, right? The time and the mental stress that it takes to make this happen. Like you have to do everything right. And you have to do and you can't miss a court date. You can't do anything wrong. You have to check all of the boxes, and yet that still doesn't guarantee that you get the child. Even if everybody can say, hey, this is a better situation for this child, there's still a lot of red tape. And when we donate money to certain families, they might ask us, hey, I need $5,000 for the lawyer to get the ball rolling. You never know how deep that's going to go. I mean, $5,000 might do it, or it might be a percentage of what it takes, and the amount of time. And it took you guys years to officially
our
adopt
court years with the custody case was 2. We had 6 months. This is part of the red tape where Everly was registered at an elementary school in Harris County. We're in Fort Bend, so we had to wait. She had to establish residency with us in Fort Bend for 6 months. And so we couldn't even go to court for 6 months. There's different things you can do. You can get CPS involved, and you can do some other things. We decided to do it the way we did it. I think we're happy with the outcome. It was extremely stressful, but it took us from court date 1 to when terminations were finally in place was 2 years.
Wow.
And so really from Everly living with us to adoption was 3. So day 1 to adoption day was right at 3 years.
Wow.
And so when we started the Thankful Ones, we had no idea what the outcome was going to be. When we did our first surgery trial, we didn't know. Her parents could have rehabbed and
Oh wow, yeah, could have turned it
got
all
themselves
around.
better, and,
Yeah.
and the situation could have been different. But the point of us doing that wasn't for us; it was for all the other stories that we were hearing out
Yeah,
there,
absolutely.
and for all the children that don't have a home or a family, right?
Yeah.
And the system makes it, in my opinion, difficult for that to happen, and I don't agree with it. And we'll do what we have to do to circumvent it and help as many families as we can. And we'll keep doing what we're doing, and we have grown organically. And so where we're at today is we're a much healthier business. None of us get paid. We've got myself and 9 other board members. Jason's one of them. Jeff Rayleigh, who I mentioned earlier, is one of them. Everybody brings something to the table. I mean 99% isn't me, but I mean,
Pretty close to that.
you know, and no one's getting paid a dime, right?
Right,
So this
time.
is truly charitable work.
Yeah.
And we like it that way. We're extremely transparent. We're under federal monitoring right now because we did get a grant in 2021.
Nice.
That really
Congrats,
that
man.
really helped us and gave us kind of a financial buffer to allow us to expand and help more families and get our name out there more. And so
Well, one thing you mentioned earlier is that when you first started, it was raise the money, give it all away.
correct.
Even though it's a 501c3, you still need to retain some money, right?
Yes.
So we went from a point where it was like, hey, everything we raised at the turkey trot, we're giving back. Now it's like we have a little bit of a cushion to keep doing things in the off season, if you will, right? Once
Right.
that money's gone. And so that grant was a big deal for us. And one of our board members was the one that actually provided that for us.
Yeah,
right?
and so yes, Brooke is well connected in the child protective services world around the Houston area. She's, I think, retired from CPS after 10 years and stay-at-home mom now, and a volunteer board member for us. And yeah, she brought us, she put us in front of that, and we did the application, and we were blessed enough to get it. So Fort Bend County, picked us as one of the what would you call it?
Beneficiary?
Beneficiary
Yeah.
of that, and it's a federal grant, and so we're under federal monitoring. So I mean, we're as a 501c3 or an open book, anyways.
Right.
It's a public entity, and so the first few years I'd front all of our costs, right, and then obviously diligently keep all the receipts and pay things back. But that's what it took. I was giving, like Jason said, I was giving all the money away. Another event's coming up. I got to spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on the T-shirts that we're gonna sell and put money back in. But we're at the point now where everything we do is for a purpose, right? And so, but we do have, we're in a better financial position. And the one thing now with us growing and servicing families directly is we've got to keep a bank in there, because like Jason mentioned a few minutes ago, we might grant someone $5,000 and that gets them to step 1, and then step 2 comes up, and then it's another allotment or whatever.
And you'd like to, if we're going to help a family, we'd like to see
all the way
it
through. Yeah.
And we don't know
If we
who's
can.
going to come to us tomorrow.
Right.
Who's going to come to us in a month? I think right now, just off the cusp, I think financially assisting, over 15 families in the last about 15 months.
Wow.
And so it took us a long time just for the word to get out to what we're doing, and through networks, and Brooke was huge with that as well. And we work directly with a few attorneys that know about us.
Nice.
And we don't give people money directly.
Right, you pay.
We're paying for these services that are expensive, and we're making sure that the costs aren't inflated either, right?
Like
Because
Matt will actually talk to their lawyers,
Right.
and then send the lawyers.
And
the
so
money.
we've been through this, so we're not just freewheeling. So
Right.
some lawyers like, hey, call them, they're gonna just pay this,
Yeah,
right?
no.
And so we're working with very honest and trustworthy people that aren't taking advantage of
Good.
people in the systems. And I do talk to people that I feel have been taking advantage of before they
Wow.
before they reach us.
Yeah.
And they'll tell me some of these costs, and I'm thinking about what we spent, and I know what our attorneys, that we work with now are charging and things like that. And so it's unfortunate that that's out there, and when you're trying to save, in my opinion, save a child's life potentially,
Right.
that
Someone wants to take
that's-
advantage of you.
So as we move forward, I think, how I run that versus how I run 4011. 4011's every day, right?
Okay.
The Thankful Ones, it's intermittent.
There you go.
Because it's all volunteer, and the time that I spend towards that's taken away from other things in my life, right? And that's really what I want to do is in my mind, 4011 is giving me the opportunity
Right.
to then go work for free
Yeah.
for the Thankful Ones and,
Yeah.
and help.
Well,
people in the community.
not only are you trying to scale 4011, but you're also trying to scale, the Thankful Ones as well too. So you got two separate entities
Right.
that at some point, right? We've talked about this. It'd be nice to have a full-time staff for the Thankful Ones, and it's inevitable. It's going to have to happen, So, but as well as 4011,
We got a low battery. Sorry.
as far as 4011, it's got to scale as well too, right? And so
Yeah.
the process for scaling both is very similar, although they're different businesses. But yeah, it's been great so far. I know we can touch real quick on it. We're getting up here on time, but you're also volunteering. Is it the Hurricanes or the Gators? Which organization are you?
So as of the Pecan Grove Gators,
The
so
Gators.
as of this winter, spring, I was nominated and then elected as the athletic director for the Gators. And so, we talked mostly about 4011. I feel like most of my time spent, actually volunteering in the community, which I love. I've got, two boys that play for the Gators. One of them will be a junior, which is fifth graders. And this will be his third year in the organization. They've had his age levels started out some bumps and bruises their first year, which they were freshmen as third graders, and then as fourth graders. They've got, in my opinion, probably the best coach in the league. He's also on the board of the Thankful Ones now, Marcus Cretion.
Oh, wow.
And had a lot of success. And what comes with success comes with asks from our age level. So the way Fort Bend youth football works, and I know Mike knows a lot about this, he's with the Hurricanes, is you've got basically kind of a neighborhood organization. Pecan Grove's unique because we've got two at
Yeah.
the same spot.
Yeah.
And so, but you've got a flag level, a freshman level, sophomore level, junior level, senior level, all under that organization's umbrella, and cheer. And so, it's all operated under that bigger entity. We're all 501c3s. And so it's all volunteer work again, and we're doing all this stuff for the kids. The Thankful One's a big supporter of the Gators, and we're getting, kind of merging those two. Thankful Ones is also a big supporter of Lamar Little League.
Wow.
Is our marketing and things around some of these, youth events and sports, things like that, gives us the opportunity to
Right.
help more families because they see who we are, they see us out there. But back to the Gators, we had success on my older son's level, and so now a lot of us are on the board. The board kind of turned over after last year. A lot of the previous board members had older children, and so they're kind of moving on.
Awesome.
And so it's been a lot of fun. It's challenging. It's a lot of work. I mean, none of this is a lot of work until you say yes, and then you're getting called.
Well, like we talked about in the last podcast, when you say yes to something, you say yes to everything.
Everything that
comes
goes
with
with it,
So-
yeah.
So my biggest problem is saying yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say no. So.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think it's been a great podcast here. Matt, obviously you guys can see now the reason we brought him on board. It's not just the business aspect of things, but he really is giving back to the community. I think that's something that's going to be very important, and not just in our podcast, but in, our lives as well too, is giving back and helping out the kids. And because we all three of us have the time to do that, it's nice to be able to do that. So again, great podcast, Matt. Thanks for coming out today. We're very proud to have you here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, man.
And, I'll leave everyone with this. The Thankful Ones, Pecan Grove Turkey Trot, Thanksgiving morning. We need your support. Everyone out there that watches this, one way or another. Sponsorships, I think, year one, I think I said we had 100, 150 people out there last year, close to 1,000.
It was huge.
Wow.
So we're growing every year, and so for businesses, you get a lot of, publicity leading up to it and the day of, and I try to do my best to highlight businesses that support us and that sponsor our event, and all the money raised is going to help adoptive families and foster children. So support us. Please come out, and when you see me posting stuff, just know it's all to give back to the community. So
Awesome. Well, again, make sure you like, share, comment, and we'll see you next time on the Strictly Business Podcast. Boom. 55 minutes.